Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, She Says Happiness. I'm Mary Ellen and this is the first of a set of quickly recorded videos that will share with you my ideas and my thoughts about some patterns that I have been sewing up recently. So the first one I'm going to share with you in this video is the Cashmerette Roseclair Dress, which you can see is bumper full there of pattern pieces. I have to say I am more of a PDF over a paper pattern girl, mainly because I hate tracing and I hate trying to fit everything back into the sleeve, which I feel I have to do. I don't know why. I did used to put them into folders and things, but then the folders started to take over my life. So I try to get them back in here and it makes me feel a little bit better. So the Roseclair Dress, I probably should have made this a lot sooner, but like most Cashmerette patterns, I came to them pretty late in the game. I mean, it's obvious that I'm a curvy sewist, so Cashmerette should be an obvious choice for me. And I've always known about them. It's not as if I've been unaware of Cashmerette my entire sewing life, my whole 2 years. And in fact, whenever I first started sewing, during the initial lockdown period in 2020, I did buy some of their patterns and then just never ever got around to making them. I always found something else to sew up first, and of course I discovered charm patterns and Gertie's Patreon, and that kept me pretty much fed throughout my first year of sewing. Yeah, I think one of the things that put me off sewing the Cashmerette patterns is that for the past couple of decades, my style has been vintage inspired. You know, I wore a lot of retro style clothes, large skirts, swing dresses, anything really that was reminiscent of 40s and 50s fashion, whether it be reproductive or original pieces. But yeah, Cashmerette's patterns to me seemed a bit lackluster in comparison, but I think my style has changed a lot in the last couple of years, that I'm less about the high impact and more about the practicality of my clothes. So I don't always wear tight form fitting dresses and petticoats and heels anymore. And that's probably a little bit sad. It's just life is busier, work is busier, and I have become a little bit more practical. So while there is still space in my wardrobe, absolutely about 70% of that space is still very much reminiscent of vintage fashion, I have made way for other things as well. So yeah, 2 years ago Cashmerette would not have been me in the slightest. And that's probably why it didn't get made up. It seemed too sensible and too middle-aged and not quite out there enough for me. But I think the turning point was at the end of 2021. I was making a dress for New Year's Eve and I had the most beautiful kind of gold jersey fabric, and it's a hard one to describe, so I'm just going to pop a picture in for you. And all I wanted was a basic pattern, one that would show off the fabric more than it did the style of the dress. And as I was going through all of the patterns in my stash, I came across the Cashmerette all-cut dress, which again seemed mumsy to me originally, but I thought I'd give it a go, so I did, and I was really pleasantly surprised. I suppose you could say the rest is history, because since then I've been quite quick to pick up on Cashmerette patterns, and yeah, I think for me it was the block, because I don't always love what I see on the sleeve. Those are not reminiscent of what I would wear, but when I match those with my own fabric preferences, it does become something that is totally acceptable to me. So the Roseclair really was no exception to that experience. And I've discovered that what Cashmerette patterns are basically, they're canvases. They're blank canvases on which you can kind of impress your own distinctive personal style. And essentially what this dress is a classic well-fitted, especially if you're busty, V-neck wrapped bodice, which is made a little bit more versatile by the options of skirts that you have. So you either can go with the tiered skirt or this, trying to think of the word, this A-line skirt, which is actually quite a generous A-line, which is maybe why I wasn't thinking of it automatically being such. You've also got 3 sleeve types in this pattern. You have the straight sleeve, you've also got the puff sleeve, and the bishop sleeve. And when I say straight sleeve, it's not really straight, it's more fluted, because actually I chose to make that option, and I'll show you that in pictures a little bit later on. So yeah, it's got a lot of potential to be whatever it is you want it to be, and if you're just looking for that classic wrap dress, I would say the Roseclair is a really good place to start, particularly if, like me, you're a curvy and very well endowed busty sewist. So I actually opted to start with Few B, which is this one here, and I sewed up the flutter sleeve rather than the puff sleeve, because I wanted something that was kind of more reminiscent of like a 1940s tea dress, and it didn't disappoint me at all. I'm really happy with it. The fabric that I chose to make was actually gifted to me by Jenny Stitches Fabrics, and you can find an entire blog on her website about this dress and how I found handling not only the fabric but also the construction process in general. So yeah, the fabric I chose was a fabric godmother print, so it is automatically, you know, vintage-esque because it comes from some back catalogue of prints that were around in the 40s and the 50s. And I just love that classic floral against the black. It's really hard to beat a classic floral for me, and I found the brightness of the colours to be really eye-catching. So that's what I opted for, and if you want to know more about how I found sewing with that, because it was a viscose twill, which I hadn't sewn with before, you can check out that blog and find out a little bit about it. I have to say, in terms of the actual instructions, I mean, it's Cashmerette. They are written with beginners in mind. I don't think you would have any issues at all picking this up and following the instructions, you know, bit by bit. They're clear, they're concise, and they always have really good diagrams as well. So if you're struggling to visualize things, don't worry about it. It's all there in your instructions. And the fit as well is pretty good. I had to make minimal adjustments. And my body shape is changing a little bit, and it still manages to fit quite nicely. So for me, really, it was just getting rid of the gape, and there was quite a considerable gape in the bust area, because while my busts are, you know, what they are, this part of me here is quite narrow, so I always need to account for that when I'm making adjustments to my pattern pieces. And I probably could have made more of an adjustment, because when I made up the toile, I was making it in a more structured fabric than the viscose twill that I was sewing with, so I did find that there was a bit of a drop in the twill. So I mean, I'll put up the pictures here so you can have a look. The fitting's not bad, it's just I know it could be better, and I do like to improve if I can. I think as well, I mean, it looks like a dress that would take you a long time to make, but I don't think it was. I mean, there was a couple of things. There was the bias binding that you had to make yourself, because obviously you can see it, it's visible on your waist ties as it continues into the ties, so you can't just go and cheat and buy it, which is what I usually do. Have to be honest, I don't usually go into the effort of making my own bias binding. But apart from that, the only kind of time-consuming part of the entire process is waiting for the hem to drop. And I think I waited 2 or 3 days, because, as I say, there was quite a lot of drop in that fabric, which maybe did need a bit more tweaking when it came to fitting, but I think I've got away with it. But yeah, I think I left it for about 2 to 3 days just to drop. And the reason I do that is because I hate an uneven hem, and I have in the past sometimes just left things for 24 hours and then evened them out, But notice then on the next occasion when I wear it, it's dropped out a little bit more and I have to repeat that process. So to stop myself from having to repeat it, I just give it the extra time that it needs, even though I'm desperate to just wear it and go out and, you know, feel really pretty. But yeah, I've learned the art of patience, I suppose. It's a pattern that I am going to revisit, and I'll probably stick to the same view. I just want to make a couple of plain versions for a bit more versatility in my wardrobe, because this is one of the things that I just keep doing over and over and over again, is getting distracted by beautiful prints. And I keep telling myself I'm just going to buy plain fabrics. And I never do. I mean, I never do. It's a very, very rare occasion that I do. And for the purposes of accessorizing and layering, I really ought to get a little bit more focused. So I have been trying. We'll see how I go from there. I think one of the things really is that Cashmerette, as ever with the Roseclair, has given us a real confidence booster of a pattern. It's amazing to find a wrap dress that fits well without having to perform all kinds of different bust adjustments, and all the little issues then that can arise from doing those adjustments, because I know when I make a full bust adjustment then I'm left with shoulder issues or sleeve issues, and it can be really, really faffy. But with the cup sizes that are built into this pattern, and I mean, I opted for the larger size range from the 12 to 32, which gives the cup sizes from C to H. And yeah, I mean, it does an awful lot of the work for us. And the best thing about it is it stays in place all day long. I have had so many wrap dresses in my wardrobe that through the course of the day just seem to show more and more and more and more cleavage. This one doesn't. It actually holds in place, which is lovely. And it does feel really, really secure. It doesn't really look it. I think maybe sometimes when I just take a look at the pictures, I'm like, oh, that looks like it could come apart at any moment, but it doesn't. I think this is really helped by the fact that you have a panel underneath that is also tied, very similar to the by hand London Hannah dress, which is a dress I made at the very beginning of my journey. I'll pop a picture in for you, in a gorgeous like pink tencel, which I got from So Me Sunshine. No, like, we're talking nearly a couple of years ago now. And I absolutely loved that dress, and I really ought to revisit it, because when I first made it, I knew this much zilch about fitting and the process of pattern fitting. So yeah, I think I'll maybe get that one out again sometime soon as well. But yeah, Cashmerette Roseclair is what I'd hope for. It's a dress that you could wear pretty much to any occasion. I think it carefully balances modern style with, you know, vintage styles. And yeah, I think for me, what I've learned is just the way I did as a reader is that you shouldn't judge a book by the cover. You also shouldn't judge a pattern by its sleeve, because there's so much more contained inside than what you could ever possibly have imagined. So yeah, try it out if you haven't already. If you have, share with me your comments there about what you found the dress to be like to sew and to wear, and I will be back with you shortly with a couple more different patterns that I want to share my thoughts on as well. So again, thank you for stopping by. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please just hit on the subscribe button, like this video if you found it interesting, and yeah, if you hit the notification bell, that will tell you the next time I go live with a new vlog, which actually I can say with all certainty today for the first time in a long time won't be very long. So take care everyone, and thank you for sharing this time with me. Bye bye.